May I?
Please be quick. We got a long meeting and it's 8:30 already.
I understand that. I understand that entirely, and I'll try to be quick. My name is Barry Craig, 180 Maroney Road here in Pascoag. A couple quick comments about some of the interchanges that just occurred. I think that
Get on the mic.
the mic is not on.
No, you can sit close enough.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think it might be useful as we go down this path for council to give some guidance to the town manager as to what people are entitled to do as a matter of right under the First Amendment to the Constitution, because I heard some things here. I understand someone planting a sign in front of the library and hammering it in might produce a problem. But signs generally don't produce problems. And people are entitled to demonstrate, and they're entitled to voice their opinion under the First Amendment. So if we're going to have town officials suggest restraint, because that's what it is, it's restraint on the First Amendment. If you're going to restrain it, then I suggest strongly to all of you that you get advice from council as to what is permissible under the First Amendment and what is not. Secondly, I think there may be a misunderstanding of the importance of the planning board meeting. I agree that it's probably the first step in a process of trying to understand what the town's experts offer in the way of opinions on this project. But in my experience, at least, the opinions of the citizens of the town count every bit as much. And when I heard an unwillingness to hear a demonstration of the noise of this power plant at this meeting, I frankly found that somewhat disgusting. People are entitled to give you their evidence every bit as much as the town's experts are entitled to give you their evidence, and you're entitled to weigh it for what each is worth. So please be a little more patient with people. The next question I'd like to ask is whether the town has sought the views of FERC with respect to this project. There are two projects going on, as I understand it, and I welcome being corrected on this subject because my understanding is not good. But my understanding is that the compressor station is going to be expanded and there is an application to build a power plant. Each generates its own set of noises. Each has the potential, at least, to have adverse environmental consequences. I'm less certain about the expansion of the compressor station, but if the noise level increases, then it raises an environmental issue. FERC has held hearings, some of you are probably aware, in Massachusetts over the expansion of that pipeline. I've asked FERC why they didn't choose to hold hearings in Rhode Island, and the answer I got back, admittedly from a fairly low-level person, was that they didn't think there was the interest. So, now, I don't know whether the council has been in touch with FERC, whether you have asked FERC to conduct a hearing on the expansion of the compression plant, but I ask you please to ask FERC to conduct a hearing on the, particularly on the noise levels that will be generated as a result of the expansion of the compression station and the addition of the noise of the power plant to that noise level. I gather that, and I'm not certain my facts here either, I'll admit, that the noise level that's generated by the compression station now is in excess of the town's noise ordinance. FERC has told me that they encourage, is the word they use, operators of compression stations to comply with local ordinances. So your voice on that subject is a voice that needs to be heard. I'm also told, and again, I might be wrong about this, that the comment period for that expansion remains open. If it remains open, then you have an opportunity to do something, albeit late. You're going to be talking later about noise, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. It's just to point out to you that we're talking about various kinds of noises and the combination of noises. There's a noise from the compression station. There's maybe an increased noise from the compression station as expanded. There is a construction noise, and after the period of construction, there is a noise from the power plant. To properly analyze what the noise levels are going to be, you have to take all of those into consideration, not just the noise that might be generated by the proposed power plant. The last thing that I hope that the consultants are taking into consideration, they'll certainly be asked about it at the June meeting, is whether they are considering alternatives to this particular power plant. Best I can tell, the only justification for it is the need for additional electric power in the New England power grid. The employment opportunities are temporary. They span over a period of 2 or 3 years. And at that point, the payroll apparently becomes nominal. So the economic impact is either nominal over the long term, or it could be negative if you take into consideration such things as the decrease in property values and the needs of the school system to accommodate additional pupils. However, there are alternatives out there if we think we need additional electricity. And one of those alternatives, which I mentioned at the siting board meeting, is that Canadian power interests, who now supply about 16% of the electrical supply that New England consumes, are terribly interested in increasing that percentage. They produce power, as I think you probably know, through on a hydro basis, completely clean, not occurring in the United States. They're already here. My understanding is that the governor of Massachusetts has taken a real interest in their proposals. There's a proposal called Northern Pass, currently going through the permitting process, which would supply every bit as much as energy to New England as this particular project would.
Can I comment on that for a second? I spend a lot of time up in New Hampshire and Vermont, and over the last, I don't know how many years, as I've driven through there on motorcycle trips, all you see in those two states are stop the Northern Pass signs everywhere. As much as we need and want the Canadian power, New Hampshire and Vermont don't want to build the transmission lines to let it get down to us. I happen to agree with you. I think it would be fantastic to take advantage of that. But that's a bigger question that goes beyond the scope of this council.
Well, but not beyond the scope perhaps of the siting board. And I think you're right. I mean, you see signs in New Hampshire like you see signs in Pascoag. Unlike Invenergy, Hydro-Quebec seems to be making an effort to meet the objections of the people who have been complaining. And there's a very recent press release from Northern Pass, for example, in which they have agreed a substantial amount of the electrical transmission is now proposed to be buried. And within the last couple of weeks, they've proposed to bury an additional amount. So the negotiations are taking place, they're not over. And I guess my point is that, while I think your point's well taken, and I think you're quite accurate in what you say, we ought to sit back and wait a bit and see if the Canadians can't win the game, because that's the win-win for us.
But the problem here is we can't sit back and wait. That's the problem. As much as we'd like to, we're not given that opportunity. We're not afforded the time that we'd like to delay this or stop it. That's the problem. I mean, your points are valid, but to wait for the hydro to come through and hope that the New Hampshire people and Vermont people approve it, that's not going to help us here.
I respectfully suggest that that's a question for the siting board as to whether delay is, unless you're going to the question of need. If you're going to the question of need, then my thought would be that this plant is every bit as speculative at this point as Northern Pass is. Thank you. Sorry.
Sir, just to answer. Sir, just to answer your comment earlier about the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is the one who has sent out this request asking for complaints or concerns from citizens.
Yeah, I understand that, and what I'm asking you is that you ask them to conduct a hearing similar to the hearings that they have been willing to conduct in Massachusetts.